Man, how many times has social media become a cancer for each and every single one of us? It's hurtful to our relationships. It's hurtful to just the connection that we have with other people. I mean, really think about it. How many times have you or your spouse prioritized just scrolling through social media and connecting with people you don't even know or barely know instead of really spending time with each other? You know, I think about, we have teenagers, and how much do they just doom scroll for hours on end, not even going out and doing other things, maybe like we did when we were kids. I can't wait to get into this topic today on how social media is hurting our relationships. I am here with my beautiful partner in crime, Stephanie McKinley.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to the Legacy Driven Marriages podcast. We're pumped about this one today. We love that you're here also, so please just take a second, take a moment, and subscribe to the podcast. Hit that little bell so that you don't miss a single episode. And if you're inclined and you like what we're talking about, shoot us a review on there because it does help us reach more people. So look, guys, you know, Steph and I were talking about this, and we've all done it. Right? This isn't just about Steph. It's not about me. It's not about kids. It's not about just you. Every single one of us have done stuff and taken pictures for the gram and checked to see who was looking at our post but didn't like it, and just really went down a negative side of social media, because for the minimal amount of good that it does, I think the way that it's utilized today compared to maybe how it was forecasted to be used back in the day is so different. And there's such a negative environment that's created that causes people to live in chaos and frustration and fear and insecurity. And I mean, you pick a thing that's a negative emotion, social media is probably help driving that, including anxiety. So we're going to get into this one today. We're about to dive right in. So Steph, what do you think about that? The social media dynamic and how it just really ends up hurting your relationship versus helping it.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we're all struggling to find that balance because, you know, our generation, we didn't grow up with it, but we have definitely incorporated it into our lives in a big way still. And then we're, like he said, we're watching our kids grow up with it though, and we're scared for what that's going to look like later, you know, because they're not having the same experiences we did. And so we just thought this is a really pretty important topic because it is affecting all of us in our everyday life and, you know, in all aspects, but it really is affecting marriage too, in that it's like you said, it in all relationships really, because we're becoming so connected to the phone that we're losing that connection with actual relationships, and we're not spending as much time connecting with each other as we are with our phones. So, you know, it is affecting how we, you know, are we communicating with each other like we need to be? Are we actually spending quality time together like we need to be? Because we do need those things to nurture our relationship. And so, and also just like he said, we're going to get into some of the other things too, where it's like what it does to our mood even, because we are on there with comparison, and that affects our overall mood, which affects everything around us going forward that day. And even just going on there as an escape. And there's so many things that
don't give away all the good. We didn't even start. You're going down the list.
Well, I'm just saying, like, we're going on there looking for things, and it's affecting us in a negative way that I don't think people saw coming. And like you said, like anxiety and depression are up. And I think we can attribute a lot of it to social media because of those things that.
Well, there's been some Harvard Business Review studies that have been done about social media. And first and foremost, that these companies are doing things like using red notifications and other stuff that drive an addictive mentality. But then second, that anxiety and depression amongst everybody, and teen suicide rate, like all these things are up because of what social media is doing to our society. And I think that there's the easy ones are there for us to pick out. We're getting ready to go into an election season. I mean, families were just torn apart during the last election.
Right, it's gotten divisive too.
Super divisive, and the algorithms drive that. So you've got stuff that's plain to see. in politics, like Republican or Democrat, and there's so much divisiveness with that. You've gotten fight videos that get shown over and over and over again, or bad things happening to people. And those things are easy to point out and say, hey, that's eroding our society. That's not helpful. We need to find a different way to go about this thing. But we're going to get into some of the little ways that social media really does hurt your relationship, because I think it's the smaller stuff, like that trickle that happens that you don't even see. And next thing you know, the algorithm is feeding you this stuff that's actually getting in the way of you having a healthy relationship. And you couldn't even see it coming because they do it so sneakily.
Yeah, I agree. So I don't know. Do you want to? We'll just start getting into the key points we had for today, because it's kind of hard to talk about it without touching on some of these.
And then we're going to talk about what you can do about it and kind of where to prioritize your time and stuff too. So as always, we're going to give you that tactical level view after giving you that high level view on what you can do about it. So Steph, I know this first one you've talked about a lot. And so why don't you take the first one?
Yes, comparison and it being the biggest thief of your joy. I have found myself, especially as women, I think we're already so critical on ourselves and how we look. And then we go on there and we see people and we see all these altered images all the time. And we see it so much that we start to see that as reality. And we're comparing ourselves to these images that aren't even real, and we're trying to look like them. And that's leading us to, it's eroding our self-worth. It's making us feel not good enough. It's, all that kind of stuff. And that does bleed into your relationship, because if you don't feel good about yourself and you don't feel like you look good enough, or then, you're going to start showing that in your relationship to where it's like, well, I don't feel comfortable doing certain things because I don't like how I look. And and all these, it is a trickle effect in this way too, that slowly over time you start to, it shows up in other ways that are bigger. And
it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. You don't even see it coming, but it's the video of the woman who puts the filter on so her skin looks really perfect. And then you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're thinking, gosh, my skin doesn't really like that. Or it's AI video now even where people have this perfect figure when that's not even realistic. And what's crazy is probably about 8 years ago, my 19-year-old was a little girl then. She was 10, 8 or 9 years ago. And we went to Smashburger over here in Gilbert, Arizona. And we're sitting there eating, and all of a sudden this black limo tent Suburban pulls up, and out jumps Tyra Banks. Shocking. And it was funny because my 10-year-old didn't even know who she was. I'm like, that's Tyra Banks. She about to come eat a cheeseburger right now? It's pretty awesome. So she was in town to promote her skincare line. And, and she had pimples on her face because she didn't have no makeup on. And she's in there getting ready to eat this smash burger. And, we walked over and said hi. And she was super gracious and so nice to my daughter. But she was a huge advocate, because back then, before social media was really crazy, you had Cosmopolitan magazines.
I was going to say, you have to say Tyra Banks was like a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. She was just
the top global model.
She was really known for modeling, and, one of those women on the magazine that you felt like you're comparing yourself to because they look so perfect. And when they saw her, like he said, she had no makeup on, so you could actually see she had skin imperfections just like everybody else.
She just looked like a normal person.
She looked like a normal person. She wasn't all dressed up, didn't have the hair all done and all that.
Makeup all perfect.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is you used to just have to worry about, like in Cosmopolitan magazines and stuff, where they'd airbrush. But now with AI, it's taken on a whole other dimension.
It gives you an airbrush look.
Yeah. And so what's happening is women are getting insecure with themselves. And that insecurity is bleeding over into their relationship. But what's happening on the other side, men get caught in this thirst trap because there's so many women showing their bodies off online now. And men are like, they stay a little bit too long on a video, and then the algorithm picks up, oh, he likes that. And they start showing you more and more and more. And now all of a sudden you have this unrealistic view of what you think most women are going to look like. You start worrying about what your wife does or doesn't look like. And then you can't even be in gratitude for what she is in your relationship. And it starts this negative cycle that kind of goes back and forth. Or worse yet, your spouse sees you looking at all these women that are on there on your feed. And now their insecurity grows even more. They pull back even more, or maybe they lash out because they're angry about it. It is really a slippery slope, and comparison truly will steal your joy. It is the biggest stealer of joy that we have in our life, and yet we still do it. Social media is making it a million times worse.
Yeah, not even just looks. It's the, oh, they got to take this amazing trip, or they live in this beautiful home, or they have all these things that I don't have. And so it's like everything, because it's not just certain, it's, you're seeing all these people in your life with all these different things and feeling like if you don't have it, you don't measure up. And so it's just eroding at us, I think.
Well, it used to be keeping up with the Joneses was people that you saw in your neighborhood, right? Or you had the rich neighborhood where they drove the fancy Mercedes. Now you have people working so hard to keep up with the Joneses, they're willing to fake or rent something to take pictures that aren't even real so that they can portray success. And that's what's really wrong with our society, is our success is all driven by things, and we compare it to things most of the time. And because of that, we can't even be happy with the stuff that we do have.
Well, what's crazy is you even see people that they could be in really good shape, and they can dress really nice, and they can make it look like just in their picture or video that they're in some beautiful place, but it may be their apartment complexes,
Yeah, pool. They're trying to make it look like their palatial estate. Meanwhile, they're in apartment, 327B.
Right? Like, they're portraying things they don't even have, and we can make it look this way, but it's not really reality, if that makes sense.
Have you ever seen those? So speaking of social media, have you ever seen those videos where it'll show you, because I'll watch travel stuff, or really flood videos is what sucks me into the doom scrolling sometimes. And it'll show this beautiful place, right? This place everybody wants to go take these, pictures for the gram on. And it'll show you what Instagram shows, and they happen to get a picture with nobody else in it or something. Or some of these phones now, you can erase the people in the picture, which is wild to me. And then it really pans, and all of a sudden, there's so many people there, and it's not as nice as it seems. But for that picture that you're comparing yourself to, you wonder why you only got to go to San Diego, and these other people are in Bali living their best life, and you feel disenfranchised and frustrated with your own life. You're not even happy about San Diego anymore, even though 2 years ago you would have been stoked to take that trip. Now you're just bummed that you're not in Bali, and you're like, my life sucks. And now your mood shifts, you change inside,
so true,
your relationship is struggling because you just don't feel good about yourself or what's happening. Like, comparison will crush you guys. It will crush you. So if you're out there and you're comparing, please stop. We've all done it. We just really understand the downside of it, and we're more intentional about getting away from that as much as we can, because we're still human at the end of the day.
Exactly. I was gonna say this is something that I know I've had to catch myself on days. Sometimes it's like just something someone said, or a comment, or someone I thought should like my post and didn't. There's all kinds of reasons, but I'll catch myself being in this mood and not feeling good because of something I saw on there or didn't see on there. And that's where we have to kind of, I've learned to then remove myself. At least sometimes it's like for a couple of days. Sometimes it's like, I'm just not going to go on the rest of today, or I start trying to give myself some space from it, because if I recognize it's actually affecting my mood and, making me really negative, or making me feel bad, or making me angry, whatever it is, I will take a break from it. And I think that's what we are all trying to find, that balance of like, how much can I look at and be okay, and how much is like too much.
I mean, when was the last time you were actually happy after you got done looking at social media? You were like, I'm so inspired and so ready for the day. I feel so good after looking at social media for 30 minutes. Probably 0% of you can actually say that, because it will just, the little things creep in there, and then the self-doubt and insecurities and stuff creep in there on top of it. So stop comparing, enjoy your dang life, and be in gratitude for the things that you do have, and stop focusing on the things that you don't. You could want, hope, dream. You can try hard and strive and want success, but make it about you and make it about your family and the things that mean success to you, not what you think somebody else's version of success is that actually has nothing to do with who you are. And so the second thing we're going to talk about, so the first thing was comparison. The second thing we're going to talk about is the time drain. I mean, think about how much, and we've done it. I mean, Stephanie and I have sat on the couch right next to each other and been on social media for like 45 minutes or an hour. And I think sometimes it's okay to decompress with that kind of stuff if that's what you want to do. But we're not even spending time. We're not even present with each other, even though we're actually physically in the same room. We're not connecting as a couple. We're not respecting each other as a couple in that moment. We're just literally looking at whatever we're looking on. Could be videos on how to fix cars. Could be videos. I've been watching videos on YouTube about how to do government contracting. You know what I mean? It could be videos about a vacation spot. But when you're just stuck and you're doom scrolling, you're going through it over and over and over again, you're not making time for your relationship. And then you get urgent because there's all these other things you needed to do, but you just looked at social media for an hour talking about, I don't have no time. Yeah, you do. You just looked at social media for an hour and now you don't have time.
Yeah. There's been days like that too, where it's like, I realize, oh my God, I spent too much time looking at that. And now you're scrambling to do other things and realizing I don't have enough time. And you actually realize when you do kind of remove it, how much more time you really have to do the things you actually need to do or want to do, which would be healthier for us anyway, because we wouldn't be looking at all this stuff that we're comparing ourselves.
Right. And I've never sat there while Stephanie's looking at social media and I'm watching a show and I'm like waiting for her to watch a show and she's still sitting there on it, or I'm doing that to her. The person that's waiting for the other person to spend time with them, they feel so disconnected and unloved and unseen in that moment, because it feels like you're prioritizing social media and scrolling about people who don't give two craps about you over your relationship in that moment. I'm sure you felt that way when I'm doing it, and I know I felt that way while you're doing it. And there's so many couples that we've talked to that this is a real problem in their relationship. It's becoming a deep-rooted problem in their relationship that they're struggling to get away from.
Yeah, well, like you said, it is addictive. It does something to our mind, and that's where it gets harder and harder to pull away the more we look at it. So it's that, and even with our kids too, I worry about kids growing up now, because now parents are very distracted with it and not paying attention to their kids either. And it's already hard enough as it is without that. So there is a lot of this stuff coming up where it's like, we've got to set the limits and the boundaries and figure out what's a good balance. And Walt and I have had this discussion several times where it's like, we go back and forth, like, should we just take it off? Should we just, but then it's so hard to feel like you're connected to anything in the world if you're not.
But then it's like, why do we have FOMO? Who cares if you're not connected to the rest of the world? You should be connected to your family first. But yet we're sitting there with FOMO, like we're going to miss out on something. But really, we're missing out on the most important thing, and that's those people right around us in our space that we actually love the most. We're just not spending the time that we should with them. So look, guys, that's a real one. So we got comparison, the fact that it's such a time drain and time suck for the things that matter the most on you. And then there's been so many people we've known who've divorced their spouse. Like, you know, we help facilitate marriage workshops and we do the podcast, so we get a lot of feedback. There's so many people that we know that have left their partner because of somebody that they met on social media, and it's turned into an affair. And it doesn't start that way. It starts out with an emotional affair. It starts out with the like. It starts out with the heart. It starts out with some flirt. Then it turns into an I am. And all of a sudden, you're like looking at all the things your spouse isn't doing right, because this person over here is fueling your ego and saying all the right things to you in that moment. Well, of course they are. It's like such an ego boost, and they're saying what they want you to hear and showing the best version of them. Meanwhile, your marriage has been in the nitty gritty. You know, and you need to start watering the grass on your side of the fence instead of looking to the other side. Because I promise you, you will never find it looking at other people or communicating with the opposite sex on the internet and thinking that that's okay.
Yeah, and something that bothers me is, I see so many people out there, even like with their profile picture, where they would appear single if you just looked at their profile, because either it doesn't even mention that they're married, their picture is by themselves, and sometimes it's like a sexy looking picture and things like that, where you're kind of portraying like you're single. So that doesn't bode well for your relationship. And of course, then you're going to have all these people reaching out to you because they think you look single. I mean, we even have, they do it anyway, even if you look married or you say you're married on there. So it's even worse if you're not.
They're like, sweet, you're married, no strings attached, maybe. What the hell?
I mean, I have pictures on there with my kids and everything, the whole family. And I still get people reaching out to me that are single and like, I'm like, if you looked at my profile, you see that I have a family. So why are you even trying to talk to me? Like, it's unbelievable.
I like your profile. You look really nice. Can we talk? Hell no, we can't talk. And fellas, I'm telling you, these ladies out there are out to get you. And if you think that you're so suave or good looking that they're just going to reach out to you, just take a step back and see the forest through the trees. There's so many women out there. They're trying to get you to go to their the fans page, whatever that thing's called, or they're trying to get you to go to their website. They're just trying to take money from you, but yet they'll prey on the visual need of a man to look at things sometimes, and then they'll reach out to you. When I first started doing my Walt McKinley inspiration stuff and doing professional speaking, I can't tell you how many. It would piss me off. It would make me mad, and I would just say, God wants better for you. And then they would never text me again. So that typically worked. Then it was like, I don't want to text that every single time. So then I started just blocking. I figured out how to block. But I even think when I first got on TikTok, because I was doing all the speaking stuff, and the first thing TikTok showed me was a bunch of women scantily clad, trying to look sexy online, which, by the way, have a little bit more self-worth, ladies, than to show yourself online like that. And I actually asked my a young adult daughter, how do I get rid of this? This is pissing me off. And she goes, well, look, Dad. And she showed me how to search like fishing videos and, ships at sea videos and stuff that I like. And then that started to fill up my feed instead of the other stuff. Because what did TikTok do? They said, you're a 40-something-year-old man. So now I'm going to show you something that 40-year-old man might want to look at. That's going to just degrade the family unit. Because that is what's happening. Like China shows us stuff to degrade the family unit to make us stupider. And if you don't think so, do some research on what China's showing their kids and their families, stuff to make them stronger. And so if you don't take a step back and you don't say, I'm going to have a little self-control over what I'm looking at on social media, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. You will erode who you are inside and your moral compass.
Yeah, I think this is another one where it's like you have to really do your best to set those boundaries online for yourself too. Like you have these people reaching out to you and it's not right. You just don't respond, or you block it or report it or whatever, and don't feed into that kind of stuff. Like it takes a lot on your own part to recognize that kind of thing. And that's what's really hard, is that if couples and marriages are not in a great place, now it's such easy access to all of that kind of stuff, where it's like, oh, if I'm not happy right now, like I can go talk to this person over here, this person over here. Let me go look up the people I knew from high school. Like it's just become so easy and so in our face all the time that it's harder than ever for marriages to survive this landscape we're in, I feel like.
And of course the grass looks greener, and marriage is freaking hard. Yeah. But man, the best thing you can ever do is continue to work through the things that you and your spouse are struggling with. Because when you come out on the other side of those things, man, your relationship is so strong and so powerful, and it really does last a lifetime, but a lifetime of positivity and goodness that comes from the struggle of living in that relationship together. That's what happens when you work through your problems and you water your own grass versus looking over the fence at somebody else's.
Well, and another thing is you can go on there and see other couples that look so happy and then compare your relationship also and be like, I want that. And so we have to watch out for that too, because sometimes it's all appearances, and they may look happy. They may not actually be happy. You don't really know.
We've talked to a lot of couples that were doing that. We talked to a couple who filed for divorce immediately after coming back from a vacation. So if you would have looked at the pictures, ooh, look at them. They're so happy. The smiles, they were hugging, kissy, huggy. Like, look at like them. They went to Bali and look at all the pictures of them on the sand. And, oh, wow, they were on jet skis too. Oh, man, how beautiful. They came back and filed for divorce. And yet here you are comparing your relationship to theirs. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors, so you just can't compare your relationship to anybody else's, and everybody's experiences look different. So you just have to be in gratitude for your own, and even grateful for the struggle in your relationship if you're willing to commit and do the work to overcoming it.
This is where there's so much smoke and mirrors to all of this stuff that we have to always kind of dig deeper than appearances, because everyone's very good at projecting that, keeping up that appearance and making it look like they're something that they're not. And so I just encourage you to not take things just at face. It's like, don't judge the book by its cover. We have to do that with social media. Like, don't assume that what you see on there is actually what it is, because we have seen more times than not that what you saw wasn't the reality at all. So,
and that people in society are perception managers. They're going to give you the best lens and exactly what they want you to see when you're looking at social media. So when you're comparing, or when you feel like this attractive person is reaching out to you, and now you're taking that help, that love that they're giving you, and you're fueling your ego instead of working on your own marriage, these are the things that really drive a wedge in your marriage faster than almost anything else will. Don't leave the door open to your marriage for something to creep in and ruin it. And that's what social media does. And so the next thing so we had comparison. We had the fact that it's a time drain, potential for emotional affairs by leaving that door open, and then escapism. There's a lot of marriages that are full of resentment. And there wasn't a social media. We used to have the little flip phones, right, when we were really struggling the most in our relationship. But I could totally see if we were really struggling in our relationship now, how it would be so easy to escape back into social media.
We did have Facebook and stuff.
Well, but you had to go on a computer. Not like you couldn't look at your phone and go to it. We
started to have smartphones. Remember, we had one that like slid open and it had a keyboard.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it wasn't like going on an iPhone 13, you know what I'm saying? Not as accessible. So, but people escape. People are struggling in their life, and they're stressed out from work, and the kids have got them stressed, and their spouse has got them stressed, and or they're just feeling a certain kind of way. They open up social media, and it's like they melt into the screen and forget that they even have things going on around them. And man, that is a really slippery slope to building a giant divide in your relationship. To escape the issues you need to address and just dive into social media like nothing's wrong.
Don't you think, like, sometimes it's like, man, what did we do before? We find ourselves on it all times of the day. If you have to wait in line at the store, or even, you know what I mean? Just the dumbest, like.
You're waiting to go pee. Like, let me look at my social media. What the heck?
It's like all the time. So, but especially if like, I mean, I even see that people, it's so different today that you can even be on them at work. Like, that would have never happened back in our day. It was like, you weren't allowed to have anything out like that. Like, you wouldn't have been allowed to have it at work and school, and like our kids even have them at school. I'm like, they let you have it in class? I'm actually shocked at that. I think that should be. I
mean, teachers are taking them from them in class now.
Now there's a lot of them that have gotten to where they're like, no, you're going to put them up for my class, which I think they should, because it is such a distraction, and we're all facing it. And it is getting to where it's even frustrating to have a conversation sometimes with people, because you'll be talking to them and then they start looking at their phone and you're like, oh man, like, hello, I'm here, like, standing right in front of you. Like, it feels so rude. And you're just like, wow, it's that important that it couldn't wait till after we were done with our conversation. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Like, we need boundaries and we need some limitations on this stuff, because it's just, we're getting to where I'm like, can we just have some basic etiquette? Because, like, even sometimes you'll be talking and someone just starts taking a selfie right in front of you, like with someone else while you're talking. And you're like, I'm standing right here. Like,
oh, we got people that we know that does that. Steph's trying to be real nice. That shit pisses me off. Excuse my language. And but then they want to take a selfie and then they include you, but then they got the filter on where now I got eyelashes and rosy cheeks. I'm like, no filter. Come on now. Can we just love ourselves for who we are? We're making it where we don't even love ourselves. And by the way, when you're sitting there with somebody and you're having a conversation and they start looking at their phone and all of a sudden they're like, yep. And they're looking at you and they're looking at their phone. They're so immersed in this person who's not even with them, whether it's a text or a stupid notification that comes up on their social media, that they disengage from the conversation that they're in and they engage into their phone when it can't just wait. Nobody feels good when that's done to them. Don't be the one that's doing it to somebody else too.
well, even, yeah, like you said, or that too, like, if you don't answer texts and messages that you get, people get mad if you don't answer right away because they feel like you have it all the time. Why can't you? But that's where it's like you have to understand that some of us are trying to set those boundaries for ourselves, and we do put the phone down and we aren't looking at it all the time. Like when I have people visiting, I try to just not even have the phone. I'll either face it down or not have it near me because I don't want to be looking at it.
But really,
while
we
I'm
should
visiting.
have it put away, right? Even
Right.
not even facing it down. And I do that too. But what does it say when you could put it away
I
or
don't
put it
want
in
to
your
be
pocket?
distracted by it, and I don't want to be rude, and I don't want, I want to be engaged with the people who are there with me in front of me at that time. So it's like it's so hard to find. We all have to work on finding that balance and realizing like how can we set boundaries with this to where, and we don't want to hurt people, we don't want to offend people, but we also we have to like want to have a life outside of it too.
Well, it's like you be okay just not texting back and saying no. After 10 p.m., my spouse and I, we watch a show. That's what we do. Like, put it away before you go to bed. Don't stand there looking at it for 20 or 30 minutes while your spouse is laying in there in bed, or they're looking at it and your spouse rolls over and goes to sleep. But maybe you could have cuddled or watched a little bit more of a show or do something to connect, you guys. Like, and by the way, if you've got so much resentment in your relationship that you're using social media as an escape, you need to start having some really radical conversations, some poignant, real conversations in your relationship. Because social media will never bring you a healthy relationship. It will never bring you back from that brink of divorce. Only conversations and connection will. So put that away, stop escaping into social media, and put the time that you would use on that into your spouse. Your relationship will flourish. And if your spouse is doing that to you, probably time to have a conversation about it. Every once in a while, we got to have a conversation about it. Every once in a while, we got to check ourselves. It's okay. Everybody does it at some point. Just don't keep doing it. That's all we're doing is building awareness. And part of that awareness now, so we talked about comparison, time drain, emotional affairs, escapism. Part of our awareness is always like, okay, well, that's great. Thanks for giving me all the problems with it. Thanks, Stephanie. All the problems. Now I feel great. What are you supposed to do about it? And that's what we're going to talk about next.
Well, we kind of touched on all of them already, I think. But the way we combat this first is, like he just said, we got to communicate openly about it. We need to have those conversations when we are feeling that way to let our partner know, hey, like, maybe we need to say, hey, once we decide this is our time for tonight, let's just put both our phones away and this is our time. And we can check this stuff tomorrow. We have to make those boundaries for ourselves and each other. And you have to talk about it and let them know if it is bothering you or something about it is bothering you, then have that conversation. I know it's not easy. Believe me, we've been there, done that. We still have to work on it. So, but it's so worth it to know how your partner feels and be able to do something about it before it's too late. And it leads to something else, or it leads to this resentment you can't come back from because we have been there. So believe me, it's easier to have the conversation than to deal with the aftermath of not having had the conversation.
And if your partner has that conversation with you, be open to the conversation. Don't immediately get defensive or say, yeah, but you do it too. If they do it too, then listen to them, empathize with them, understand kind of where they're coming from, know that it's probably meant from a place of love, but then you do have to do some analysis on yourself and say, well, am I doing that too? Because look, nobody wants those things like we're talking about. Somebody who's addicted to social media and they're not prioritizing you. You have to think to yourself, if you're doing it to them, how would I feel if they were doing it to me? And it's the golden rule. Stephanie loves the golden rule. She always talks about it, right? Treat others how you want to be treated. It is really that simple to say. It's harder to execute on and make that a daily habit. And the next thing, we just talked about it a little bit too. Part of that communication is setting some boundaries and then prioritizing quality time with each other. The people on your social media, even those people close to you, they don't mean as much as your partner, as your spouse, as your kids that are living in your home that need, want, and thrive if they're getting that time for you. So make sure that you set boundaries. If you want to look at it for 15 minutes, look at it for 15 minutes. Set an alarm for yourself. But then go back to spending quality time with the people you love the most, because quantity time doesn't matter. If I'm on social media and I'm talking to Steph and I'm half in my conversation with her, half on the next like that I get on a post, we're not spending quality time together at that point. Sure, we're spending time. We're in the same room. It's just quantity time. And you don't become connected from just the quantity of the time. You become connected and feel loved, seen, and heard from quality time that you guys spend with each other. So prioritize that by setting some boundaries on your social media usage.
Yeah, and the last one was get back to focusing on real life connections with those you love the most. So yeah, we've already talked about it, but we do need to get back to that. We need to prioritize whoever's in front of us, whoever's in the room with us, put our phones away, and actually, really invest in them. Unless, you've agreed to be like, oh, I just kind of want to vegetate for a minute because I need that. Some people, like he said, it's decompress when you get home or decompress at night at some point. That's fine, but make that, decide on that together. Like, what's a good time for that? And let your partner say, hey, I just need a few minutes, or I just need to do this, but kind of let them know what you're doing, and then so they don't just feel like you're just ignoring them.
Yeah, and then monitor your time. Right? If you say, hey, give me 30 minutes, I just want to decompress. Some people might be reading a book. Some people it's social media scrolling. Some people might play Xbox game. Whatever it is, give yourself a minute to do that kind of self-care and just disconnect. But make sure that you jump back in and reconnect. We have such a problem in our society with people's abilities to connect, and people feel lonely and depressed and full of anxiety because we have focused on social media and text messaging instead of phone calls and then real connection when you're in person with somebody else. We just have. So recognize where you need to do some work on that. Talk to your spouse if they need to do some work on that. And then pray for all the teenagers, because it is really hard to get them to disconnect because they grew up with this. So if you have teenagers like we do, you understand. So look, guys, at the end of the day, we gave you guys 4 key points of where it really drains your relationship: comparison, time drain, the potential for emotional affairs by keeping that door open, and then escapism. Make sure you communicate. Make sure you set boundaries with each other, with yourself, and then get back to focusing on the real life connection. If you just do the couple of things that we talked about, it will make a massive difference in your relationship.
Be intentional. That's the key word. Be intentional.
Right. And get away from the doom scrolling. I catch myself doing this on videos. Get away from the doom scrolling. I will start on a video in India about a cargo ship that's in some giant waves, and next thing you know, I'm watching floods in Pakistan and China. I mean, really, it will, and I'm just like scrolling through the videos, and it's so mindless, and I kind of just forget how long I've even been on it sometimes. So you really have to do that. Monitor yourself and set an alarm for yourself until you've created enough intention that now it's a habit. And stop looking at who looked at your post. Stop looking at who looked at your stories. Who freaking cares? Because you focus on the 1 or 2 people who didn't, not all the people who did. We all do that. Stop doing that. It is crushing your joy and crushing your happiness. And if you need to, take a damn break. Delete it. Don't come back to it for a month. And then evaluate how much happier you were when you didn't have it.
Yeah, that's all. I think you covered it. My only point was get more intentional about when you are on it. When you have people actually there in the room, give your attention to them, put the phone down. It's only going to happen if we make ourselves aware and we try to be intentional, because otherwise that phone will just have you sucked in and you will, you will just ignore everything around you. We've all done it. I know for me, that's exactly what sometimes I'm like, I literally have to be like, okay, so like, just put it down. Like, I'm better when I just like put it down somewhere and leave it and just don't even have it near me. And I just go off and do the things I need to do, because it really is such a drain on everything in your life. And it, like he said, and really, how much positivity really comes from it? Can we really even say that there is any? Hardly. I mean, not really. So I don't know, guys, just, I say set boundaries, be intentional, really try to pay attention to who's around you and not the phone.
I love it. You know where happiness does come from, though? From legacydrivenmarriages.com and our weekly newsletter. Look, you guys, commit to continuing to build a stronger relationship. The stuff that we talk about on the podcast, we actually kind of write out and put in the legacydrivenmarriages.com weekly newsletter that we send out. Go on there, sign up for it. It's free. Get that tactical advice and bite-sized chunks that you can start using and executing on right now. It will truly help you, and it is definitely a game changer. And frankly, it's the same kind of stuff Stephanie and I do too, and that we continue to be intentional about, and why we're here to give you those tips and advice on how to continue to build a legendary marriage. So look, guys, we love having you here. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. But until the next time,
get into the arena of your marriage, keep fighting for your relationship, and keep elevating your generational legacy. And we'll see you guys next Tuesday.
Woo! Let's go.